Welcome back to my messy desk. And there are bits everywhere. Contrary to what this may appear, this is an Argo episode. Now, my last Argo episode kind of went ass up. Through to some legalities that I'm still trying to work out at the moment. So you'll hear more about that as the legalities are discussed and come to an agreement. Anyway, in the meantime, I have found a Lowrance fish finder for a very good price. They were going for about 130 bucks. Now, I've been for quite a while trying to find a way to determine the water depth underneath the Argo when I'm floating. And I looked at using an Arduino ultrasonic sensor and a whole bunch of other things, and I'd been using the anchor method, which is stop, drop the anchor till the rope hits the bottom and then lift it up again, measuring the rope. That's great, but not great for a long distance thing. This worked out to about the same price as doing the Arduino trick. So I'm going to see if I can find a way to fit this in that doesn't sort of impede everything else and doesn't result in this getting snapped off. So it'd be nice. And I reckon this little bracket will mount onto the dash nicely. Also, one other thing I've neglected for the last couple of days due to firstly the sweltering heat and then the next day the pouring rain is greasing the bearings in the Argo and cleaning out some of the junk that's in the back. So I think we're going to jump to doing a bit of cleanup, greasing the bearings, and then we'll get stuck into doing this. Anyway, let's go do that. Alright, so we're outside. I'm poking around in the back of the ambulance. I had to find a couple of things for my GoPro, and I've been looking for ages for my improvised mag mount. And I finally found it. That is going to be handy for today. I had to check on the fridge and a few other things and let that air out. Now, most importantly, we are going to need to move the Argo today before we can work on it. So, I've got it all parked down here. And yes, we have a lot of camouflage gear around here. Now, I did a bit of a rubbish expedition recently, picked up a bunch of rubbish. I've been checking on some stuff for the Argo Owners International page, looking for a breather on the diff and couldn't find it. So anyway, consequently I've been in some sandy areas. So there's a bunch of sand I had to clean out, and broken glass that I've been picking up as well. It's not fun to stand on. Anyway, we're going to get this out of here, and we can actually grease up the bearings today, and then we can get on to putting this little depth sounder in. Anyway, let's get moving. Oh, I'm definitely sore today. All right. Up here. Alright, now, challenging bit was getting this out without tipping sand everywhere. Do this very gently. Oh, yeah, I didn't want to dip sand all over the chains, which I did anyway. Sand on chains, not good. Alright, I gotta clean this up first. Right, well, managed to wipe down as much sand off the chain as I can, but I've got sticky chain oil on there. I'm not comfortable about that arrangement, but at some point soon these chains do need to be taken off and washed and whatnot. But for the moment, I'm going to hope more chain oil fixes the problem. I'm hoping a decent soaking of that will wash some of the chain off, some of the sand off. I need to oil these chains anyway, so I might as well do it while I'm here. So we've got a similar problem in here in that I need to pull this floor pan out without tipping sand all over the chains. I did have crazy ideas of vacuuming it out and all sorts of stuff, and on hindsight that mightn't have been a bad idea. But now we need to move everything. There's a bit of broken glass in here in the last trip. That one's definitely got to go in the bin. Alright, we will get this guy out of the way. What else have we got? A couple other things to take out. Can come out. The rest of this I think we can just lift out. Again, we've got to make sure that we don't tip sand all over the chains. But cross that bridge when we get to it. Second shot at the front ones. Get these guys. So these idler chains are the ones that I really should be using like a little piece of cardboard or something to stop chain oil splatting on the discs. But I just move it around a few times and I get a couple of shots at it. Now, one of the main things you want to focus on with these Argos is keeping these outer bearings greased. If you do nothing else, you spray a bit of chain oil on the chains and grease the outer bearings. Predominantly, if you enter water, when they're hot, they do suck a bit of water in. Hot stuff with cold water tends to contract and suck things in. I use Castrol Spherol Ultratech 2 grease, which is a marine prop shaft grease that goes tacky in contact with water. It has reduced the amount of water ingress in the bearings, but you still need to put a bit in there. So yeah, we're going to line up some holes here, so give us a second. GoPro, stop recording. Alright, well, around the front here you can see the plumber's repair where we hit a stump at one point and it punched a hole in the hull. I do need to get a skid pan for that. Right, there's one grease nipple clear. I'm going to shove our grease gun through that hole at the top. This is why I like to do this on a day where the grass has had a chance to dry out and it's not raining. This is why this has taken me 3 days. 4, 5 or 6 pumps is usually enough, but I go till I hear it crackle just a tiny bit. Some dogs having an argument up the end of the street by the sound of things. This is taking a bit more grease now. I'm seeing some drips of water just squeeze out a little bit. I'm just slowing down and being gentle with the grease gun. So we just want that little bit of positive pressure. Yeah, now there's a tiny bit of grease just starting to show, so we stop before we blow out the seal. Alright, now I've got 7 more of these to do, so I'm going to go do that. You guys don't need to see this repeated 7 more times, so I'm going to carry on and I'll be back in a minute. I figure while I'm here, it can't hurt to knock a little bit more into these guys. Just a couple of pumps each, just to get things a little bit lubricated. Right, and I'll do the front ones, then we'll get on to this fish finder. Aussies. Some really challenging ones up the front. But that one The other one I've got to go through the bonnet. Try you. That feels better. Alright. Good job, we're done. Now there's something I'm a little butthurt about. If you go looking for a block of Solvol, this is all you can find these days. Did a bit of research and found out they're not making blocks of Solvol anymore because of manufacturing issues. This is a brand that WD-40 own. The blocks of stuff are absolutely magic for getting grease and oil off. This stuff, not so. And I'm a bit butthurt they're not doing that, and I want to know what their reasoning is for that. But I reckon this stuff is just as good as the block. No, it's not. It's useless. Alright, now for the main event. We have our Lowrance depth finder, a Hook2, whatever. I don't know what brand name they call that. First time I've ever dealt with a depth sounder, and it's not a complicated one, so I don't think that matters. Now, importantly, we need to figure out where to mount this thing. And the first consideration is the bonnet or hood, depending on what your nationality is, I guess. We need to put it in such a position that it won't interfere with that. So up on the top there is not an option. Down there maybe, if I can straighten it out. Over here seems more like a better idea if I can make sure it avoids everything, but it's a bit far from the driver's position, and I like to put stuff like my Spot Trace or Spot Gen 3 over there. I could mount it down here, I guess, and have it pointing upwards, but then it's going to get in the way of my knees. There really is a good spot, but again, it's going to run into the, I guess these are lift off hinges, but it's a pain to put them back on. I'm going to do a bit of thinking about where I can mount this. Alright, so I've come to a decision of one of about two ideas. I either mount it down here so I can look at it down low, or have it angled up like that, which sort of works, but it's going to get kicked. Up here is still a fair way from the driver's position. It is close to the electrics, and we can have it miss the bonnet and it opens like that. Now my thought was, when I put a tarp over this on occasion, this is really going to get in the way, until I realized that I can actually take that off the bracket and unplug the connector off the back, so I can actually remove that, so, or at least take it off and sit it down here in a low profile position. So I think this is pretty much going to have to be the way it is. Now ironically, if I put a big heavy trolling battery in the jerry can bracket off to that side, I can actually sit in the front and it sits at a fairly level position, and I could in theory troll along with the tires, so that might work. Now I've got 6 meters of cable on that, and I've got a 3 meter vehicle, so I'm going to be doubling up some cable somewhere, but hopefully it's shielded. So now I need to figure out how I'm going to get the cable in. I think I'm going to do the unthinkable and drill a hole in it, and yeah, I guess that's how it's going to work. But anyway, let's get the screws out. Okay, so having mounted stuff like this before, the very first thing I did is lay my cable out to get warm so that I can straighten some of the kinks out of it. The second thing I'm going to do is I'm going to locate this nicely and drill these holes before I drill the hole that goes underneath. Before I do that, however, the most sensible thing to do is to shove your hand in underneath here and make sure there's nothing critical hiding underneath there in the length of the screws, and it doesn't appear that there is. So that's good. And I can reach in there to push a cable or the connector back through. That's the most important thing. So I've got our gear, and we have a step drill because my drill is not big enough to drill a hole for this connector, which is this guy here. So let's get cracking. Okay, so I had planned to have this hole underneath this bracket, but the way the bracket's made, that's not really possible. Now, I could fit a grommet to this, but what I'm actually going to do is coming up with blue tack, not silicon or anything else. If I've got water coming in this hole, I've got a ton of water coming in here, and I've got bigger problems. And I might want to remove this at some point. So, I'm going to mush some of this around, shove it in the hole. That will keep the dust and crap out of there, not that it really matters. Now, ultimately I'd like to use one of the sections in this fuse holder. So I'm going to remove this fuse holder, have a look and see how I can connect to it. But I'm pretty sure it's a common bus bar. There's the neighbours again. Pretty sure it's a common bus bar, and I think I can use one of these wires here that comes off that. We'll find out. Alright, now the fun bit begins. Figuring out how to get this all the way from the back all the way up here. Again, I'm going to take some thinking, but I think I'm going to remove that back seat and I'm going to tuck it underneath the top here where I've run wires before, just simply because that's really convenient. Anyway, let's get going, and I'll do an explanation afterwards because my battery's starting to get down, and this is the new GoPro Hero 9 and I don't have spare batteries. Alright, so the front half of the cable is run and it's tucked in along behind here and past the handbrake cable. And I will tuck that out of the way of the mechanism there. I use some of these panel poppers or panel removal set or molding removal tools, whatever you want to call them. They just pull this back just a little bit to make that tiny gap to tuck it in. It runs out under here and under the seat, and I will double back all my excess stuff and poke it in behind here. I'm going to mount it. Originally I was going to mount it on this, but that is removable and I like to remove that from time to time. I'm going to mount it under here. Even though it makes it a little more vulnerable, it's further away from all the moving water, and I was all worried about how I was going to mount it with this silly bracket and everything until I read the manual and it said this little slot in here is for zip ties. So I'm going to zip tie the thing on. That way if I collide with something, it's more likely to bust the zip tie before it busts the sensor. But the whole thing's only worth about 130 bucks. It's not the most expensive thing on the planet, and it's not essential to its function. So I will, however, just have to be a bit mindful about scraping and bellying out on stuff. So yeah, I will have a think about that when I mount it, which is going to be in a couple of minutes. We'll get down there and do that, and I'm on 30% battery, so let's see how we can go. Alright, so let's recap how I've done this. Now, I have stuck it under here with just a single zip tie. In case anything collides with it, it will have a tendency to break off. I don't know how that's going to go when I hone around in the shrubs and stuff, but we'll find out, I guess. I've zip tied up the battery carrier here, or not the battery carrier, the jerry can holder, and I've come up and around and over and gone under, and I've zip tied along the frame. This piece of cable here, when we do it right, I'll be able to pull that up under, tuck it up underneath this frame. It runs along, it goes through past here, underneath, around, and up into here. I'll chop all these zip ties off, and then we'll get this fuse box off, figure out how we get the rest of it wired up. Alright, we are installed, and I'm sorry if you missed a chunk of that. My GoPro went flat. A bigger battery, my ass. Anyway, now I have put some blue tack around here to seal up this hole because it's removable, and I may in the future remove that. That whole unit is removable. Now, as far as the electrics go, this fuse here, as per the placard here, is your bilge pump fuse, and I originally thought it was an orange wire, but it's actually a pink wire. So pink wire comes out here. Now, I didn't have the right terminals to hook up to the negative bus bar here, but out of sheer laziness I just used the ground off the horn circuit. That shouldn't worry things at all. It fires up, and importantly, the bilge pump works when the ignition is off. That's really important because I intend to be floating with the ignition off and scanning the floor of whatever body of water I happen to find myself in. So it's now nearly lunchtime and I haven't had breakfast, so I'm going to go have breakfast. Then we will get this on that and that on this, and then we'll find a body of water nearby, or maybe at a distance, I don't know, and we'll take it for a test run and see what happens.
2 hours later.
Okay, now stay there, don't move around. Alright, it's at this point in the video I've just got my fingers stuck in the trolling motor outboard bracket. I can't get my fingers out. The bracket has fallen down, trapped my fingers and locked. The only way to get my fingers out is to push it down further, release the lock and pull my fingers out. They have gone instantly numb and I'm bleeding everywhere. So I've had to make a quick departure from the water. My apprentice, you'll hear her making observations as we go. Oh, Christ. Oh. Alright. Well, we're going to go back to land. I just hurt myself real bad. Okay. Light it up. Let it turn around. Alright, I'm going to need your help with first aid.
Why?
Because I need first aid and I need you to help. Alright, so going to be a slight delay with this video. I just shut my finger in the trolling motor bracket. My apprentice has been a great little first aid helper here. But I've got the senior financial manager, or the financial manager, coming to load the Argo up because it could be a bit of a problem. I can show you a bit of a photo here in the corner. I'll do that in editing whenever that happens, of what my finger looked like. But suffice it to say, the pain is only now just hitting, and it's pretty nasty. There's blood all over the console of the Argo.
Don't forget the seat.
I got blood all over the seat, have I? A little bit there, yeah. Alright, well, I think we'd better go to hospital. And we cut our trip short only after being in the water for about a minute and a half. So, the depth sounder was working. We got to about 4 meters in depth, and that worked quite well. But I'd love to have some video for you, but I had to pretty much just hightail it back here. I was bleeding actually quite actively with that. This might even be a hospital visit. I'm thinking that might be sensible. The one day where I left my wallet at home. So yeah, but we have to get all of this gear loaded and somewhere, and then I'll go down to the hospital. It's gonna be fun. Here we go.
6.5 hours later.
Alright, we'll add some additional to this and explain exactly what happened. Well, I was putting this outboard down, and this little dicky lever here always jams up, so I'd folded that up and pushed my finger in here. And as my apprentice shifted her grip, or shifted her weight, my grip shifted and I got my fingers underneath here. This whole thing then slid down and locked in into this one, and in order to get my fingers out I had to push it down a little bit further to unlock that. So that messed up my fingers, but fortunately my apprentice was able to get me out. And I had to grab hold of the grip here, which meant I pissed blood all down the inside in here. It's also about to rain, so I need to pull the bung plugs out of this and cover everything up again. Alright, so we're inside with the air conditioning on, and I'm going to need another dressing for this. It started raining, and yeah, that didn't go to plan, but the depth sounder works. We measured about 3.5 meters at the end of the jetty. I will go out once this is healed up a bit and get some proper video of that, but unfortunately it's not going to be in this video. The Hero 9 works well, did most of the videoing on it. My other two Hero 7s are doing a good job. I have no idea how I'm going to edit this video. A lot of stuff happened under duress, so yeah, we'll see how we go, but I hope it was enjoyable anyway, and I hope you don't mind a little bit of blood, because you know. Oh, and there's also a hole in the back of that finger too. So yeah, anyway, when I heal up a bit we'll have another video.